Inevitably, everyone encounters it. There arrives a specific point in time when one's resolve falters, and the allure of something forbidden or undesirable feels overwhelmingly potent, surpassing all other sensations or rational thoughts in the world. This might manifest as an irresistible desire for a particular food late at night, a compelling impulse to send a message to an individual whom one knows they should avoid contacting, or a sudden, almost magnetic pullback towards a habitual behavior that one had solemnly committed to abandoning. During such instances, one often experiences a profound sense of helplessness, akin to being controlled by an external force, as if their own agency has been usurped. However, consider an alternative perspective. What if these challenging junctures were not merely indicators of an inherent frailty or deficiency, but rather profound invitations to awaken and access a more profound aspect of one's inner being? If you continue to engage with the insights presented herein, you will progressively uncover 13 fundamental principles that are capable of empowering you to reclaim your intrinsic strength and autonomy the subsequent occasion that temptation endeavors to assert dominance over your decisions and actions. These are not merely superficial suggestions. They represent substantive, actionable methodologies, deeply rooted in a philosophical approach inspired by the natural world. Their purpose is to facilitate a deeper self-awareness, enable profound mastery over one's inherent impulses, and cultivate an enduring resilience that can be implicitly relied upon during life's most critical moments. The prevailing societal consensus often regards temptation as an inherent failing, an undesirable characteristic to be despised, vigorously combated, or to evoke feelings of profound shame. Yet a more naturalistic perspective offered a significantly divergent interpretation. From this viewpoint, temptation was regarded not as an anathema or a curse, but rather as a profound signal. It represents that intrinsic facet of one's being that yearns for something more profound, that deeply craves novel experiences, heightened pleasure, or a temporary reprieve from reality. The fundamental issue, therefore, is not the mere experience of being tempted. Instead, the true challenge lies in neglecting to decipher the underlying message that the urge is genuinely attempting to convey. The next instance you perceive yourself being drawn by the siren call of temptation, make a conscious effort to pause. Rather than engaging in self-condemnation or judgment, pose a direct, introspective question to yourself. What is the authentic longing that lies beneath this urge? Am I seeking solace, exhilarating stimulation, a diversion from current circumstances, or simply a heightened sense of vitality? This particular form of sincere, unvarnished inquiry constitutes the foundational principle of self-mastery. As articulated by a profound thinker, there resides more profound wisdom within the intricate workings of your physical form than within the most elaborate philosophical constructs you might conceive. This statement implies that your inherent desires function as vital messengers rather than malevolent entities. Therefore, it is imperative to attend to them without succumbing to apprehension or fear. It is often convenient to attribute our personal struggles and internal conflicts to external factors. The ubiquitous availability of unhealthy convenience foods, the incessant barrage of digital notifications, and the myriad ways in which contemporary existence seems meticulously engineered to divert our attention all contribute to this tendency. However, the aforementioned philosophical perspective maintains that the most significant and enduring battles are invariably waged within the confines of one's inner self. Temptation in this context is not fundamentally about a delectable piece of chocolate cake or an illicit text message. It is instead about the inherent psychological tension that exists within you, the part that yearns and covets, juxtaposed with the part that seeks to exert control and discipline. This inherent dichotomy explains why sheer willpower, in isolation, proves to be insufficient. If one's sole strategy for confronting temptation is through brute force resistance, an inevitable depletion of mental and emotional resources will occur. However, if one can cultivate an understanding of their own cognitive processes, discerning the underlying motivations for their desires, and recognizing their inherent limitations, a fundamental transformation in this internal struggle begins to unfold. You transition from being a passive victim of your impulses to becoming a discerning observer, capable of stepping back, evaluating the situation, and making deliberate choices rather than instinctively reacting. True liberation, according to this philosophical framework, commences at the precise moment one attains conscious awareness of their own innate impulses. The majority of individuals navigate their experiences with temptation in a state akin to somnambulism, acting upon every urge without ever pausing to critically examine its origins or implications. Yet when you intentionally halt and simply acknowledge the presence of the feeling, you effectively break the hypnotic spell it casts. The next time you experience the pull of temptation, actively engage in the practice of becoming the observer. Internally articulate to yourself, I am cognizant of this urge, but I am not compelled to act upon it. Observe the trajectory of the feeling as it intensifies, reaches its peak, and frequently dissipates without any direct intervention on your part. The true power lies not in extinguishing the urge entirely, but in the profound realization that your true self is distinct and separate from it. The philosophical figure in question was renowned for their defiant spirit, characterized by an unwavering commitment to scrutinizing all established norms, particularly those inherited dictates that originate from external sources. It is often observed that temptation intensifies precisely when it is subjected to suppression. The more one is instructed, do not engage in this, the more the mind tends to rebel against such prescriptions. Instead of expending all one's energy in futile resistance, endeavor to redirect that energy. If you experience a strong inclination to indulge in an activity or substance that is detrimental to your well-being, channel that rebellious energy into a constructive or audacious pursuit. Engage in creative writing, embark on a vigorous run, initiate a conversation with someone, or alter your immediate surroundings. Utilize your inherent defiance as a catalyst for personal development rather than for self-sabotage. One of the most profound insights offered by this school of thought pertain to the concept of the shadow, those concealed aspects of oneself that one attempts to disavow or evade. Frequently, temptation serves as an indication that one's shadow self is actively seeking attention. The very things one is most secretly drawn to are, at times, precisely those aspects of oneself that one feels most ashamed to acknowledge. To effectively diminish temptation's hold, it becomes imperative to engage in shadow work. This entails confronting one's darker desires without judgment, understanding their true underlying motivations, and subsequently integrating them into one's conscious existence. As it was eloquently stated, one must possess chaos within oneself to give birth to a dancing star. The shadow is not an adversary, rather it represents an untapped reservoir of potential power. The common understanding of self-control typically involves an immediate and unequivocal refusal. However, this philosophical perspective advocated for a strategic engagement with time. If confronted by a potent urge, endeavor to defer action for a mere few minutes. Instruct yourself, I will postpone this for 10 minutes and then reassess my feelings. Frequently, the acute urgency of the desire diminishes, allowing for a decision to be made with greater clarity of mind. This seemingly minor act of patience cultivates substantial inner fortitude. It serves as empirical evidence that one is not merely a prisoner of their impulses. With each successful delay, the grip of temptation weakens, and one's confidence in their own volition strengthens. The human mind abhors a void. If one merely attempts to eradicate a temptation without replacing it, the temptation often resurfaces with augmented intensity. However, by substituting it with something genuinely meaningful, be it physical activity, artistic expression, creative endeavors, or authentic human connection, one effectively fills that void with something that provides deeper nourishment. This philosophy posited that life's essence lies in creation, not solely in avoidance. Ask yourself, what positive elements can I introduce into my daily routine that would render temptation less appealing? The more one enriches their life with pursuits of genuine significance, the less psychological space remains for urges that merely offer fleeting gratification. The choices made during moments of temptation fundamentally shape the person one ultimately becomes. Therefore, continue to engage with these insights, as the subsequent principles will delve into the deeper psychological underpinnings of why willpower often fails and reveal the latent strengths that can be activated through a profound understanding of one's core self. If you have ever experienced a protracted and ultimately unsuccessful battle with temptation, I encourage you to share your most significant struggle below. Furthermore, if you desire additional methodologies for achieving genuine personal liberation, I invite you to subscribe. This exploration is merely at its nascent stage. The conventional wisdom dictates that the solution to temptation is simply an amplification of willpower. Clench your teeth, utter a firm no, and hope that the compelling urge dissipates. However, anyone who has attempted to navigate an intense craving through sheer brute force understands that this approach rarely yields lasting success. The naturalistic view of willpower differed significantly, portraying it not as an immutable state, but as a finite resource that is susceptible to exhaustion, particularly when an individual is experiencing stress, loneliness, or a sense of being overwhelmed. True self-mastery, according to this perspective, involves recognizing when one's energetic reserves are depleted and consciously structuring one's life in a manner that supports rather than undermines their journey toward success. That might entail altering your surroundings, consciously avoiding known triggers, or meticulously planning in advance to ensure you're not forced to make difficult choices when your resilience is at its lowest ebb. Self-control serves as a valuable instrument, yet it comprises only one component of your comprehensive toolkit. Should you consistently chastise yourself each instance you experience a setback, you are inadvertently overlooking the broader, more significant perspective. The presence of enticement is not an examination of your inherent character or moral fiber. Instead, it functions as an indicator, prompting you to investigate your genuine underlying requirements. Are you experiencing fatigue, feeling anxious, or simply suffering from boredom? Do you harbor a profound desire for connection or a deeper sense of purpose? Each internal impulse acts as a significant clue. Mastering the ability to decipher these clues marks the genesis of authentic personal liberation. When confronted with the triumph of temptation, the typical human response is to succumb to feelings of shame and self-reproach. You instinctively label yourself as inherently weak, indolent, or fundamentally flawed. However, the wisdom of nature perceives self-condemnation as yet another snare, a mechanism designed to keep individuals perpetually mired in their current state. True strength emanates from the practice of self-compassion, which is the fortitude to extend forgiveness to oneself and to critically examine the circumstances that transpired. Consider implementing the following practice. When you yield to an alluring temptation, take a deliberate pause and inwardly inquire, what emotions was I genuinely experiencing at that moment? What fundamental need was I attempting to fulfill? Subsequently, extend to yourself the same measure of empathy and consideration you would readily offer to a trusted friend. This approach is not intended as a means of fabricating excuses. Its true objective is to foster personal growth and cultivate greater sagacity. Every misstep should be regarded as a valuable learning opportunity rather than a definitive judgment on your inherent worth as an individual. The philosopher Nietzsche observed, "He who despises himself still respects himself as one who despises." Even amidst episodes of profound self-aversion, an intrinsic yearning for personal dignity persists. Grant yourself that fundamental dignity. It forms the bedrock upon which enduring and meaningful transformation is built. Your mental framework is constructed upon narratives that define your identity, delineate what you believe you are entitled to, and determine the scope of what you perceive as achievable for yourself. Temptation frequently exerts its most potent influence when you are ensnared within a persistent, outdated narrative, particularly one that reiterates sentiments such as, "I invariably make mistakes," or "I am incapable of change." NZ posited that individuals could assume the role of authors of their own destinies by critically examining these ingrained narratives and courageously endeavoring to compose new ones. When you become cognizant of an internal urge, endeavor to discern the underlying narrative that accompanies it. Is it conveying to you that comfort is the sole gratification you will ever attain? That happiness is an exclusive privilege reserved for others? That you are irrevocably destined to reenact past patterns? Challenge these predetermined scripts. Instead, compose an entirely new one. Affirm to yourself, "I am actively engaged in learning. I am undergoing a process of transformation. I am inherently more resilient than my previously established patterns. Genuine change does not imply the obliteration of one's past experiences. Rather, it signifies the judicious utilization of everything you have endured to sculpt and define the person you are progressively becoming. Nietzsche perceived daily rituals as an efficacious method for establishing order amidst inherent chaos. When your life is meticulously structured around a series of minor, yet profoundly meaningful routines, the allure of temptation diminishes considerably. Rituals serve to anchor you. They serve as constant reminders of what is truly significant. They streamline the decision-making process because you are not compelled to commence from a state of absolute uncertainty each day. Consider incorporating subtle rituals that actively support your aspirations. This could involve a morning stroll prior to engaging with your mobile device, allocating a specific time for journaling or introspective reflection, or even a brief nightly pause to practice deep breathing before retiring to bed. Each seemingly insignificant act functions as a powerful declaration. I am the architect of my own life, not merely a slave to my transient cravings. Over an extended period, these meticulously cultivated rituals evolve into a formidable wellspring of inner strength. They constitute the imperceptible infrastructure that sustains you when your reserves of willpower inevitably wane. Enns articulated the profound significance of proactively shaping your external environment, rather than exclusively concentrating on your internal thought processes. If you habitually keep confectionery readily accessible on your desk or your smartphone positioned beside your pillow, you are inadvertently creating obstacles that impede the success of your more virtuous self. Willpower is inherently a finite resource, but you possess the capacity to strategically arrange your surroundings to facilitate constructive choices and render temptation less attainable. Pay close attention to the specific circumstances where you tend to revert to entrenched habits. Is it feasible to reconfigure your physical space, modify your established routine, or institute measures that make it more arduous to succumb to temptation? Can you strategically introduce reminders of your core values, such as an inspiring quotation, a cherished photograph, or a supportive message from someone who believes in your capabilities? Your immediate environment ought to function as an ally to your future self. Temptation flourishes most vigorously in conditions of isolation. When you grapple with your challenges in solitude, it becomes effortless to harbor the belief that you are the sole individual experiencing feelings of vulnerability. However, the wisdom of nature recognized the paramount importance of communal bonds, not merely as a source of solace, but as a potent wellspring of genuine resilience. Share your struggles with an individual you implicitly trust. Consider joining a specialized group or engaging with others online who are actively pursuing analogous objectives. Even a singular candid conversation can significantly alleviate the burdensome weight of temptation. You will come to the profound realization that you are not alone in your endeavors, and you will be able to draw upon the courage of others when your own reserves are depleted. Do not underestimate the transformative impact of a single, supportive friend. The essence of community does not lie in achieving collective perfection. Rather, it resides in the unwavering commitment to refrain from abandoning one another, even when circumstances become exceedingly intricate and challenging. NZ held the conviction that struggle is not an adversary. Instead, he viewed it as the very crucible from which meaning emerges. Each instance you confront temptation presents an opportunity to introspectively inquire, what profound lesson is this experience imparting to me? Perhaps it is teaching you patience, fostering humility, or underscoring the imperative to nurture yourself with greater depth. It might serve as a poignant reminder that you are alive, still actively striving, and continually evolving. When you reconceptualize temptation as a mentor rather than solely an antagonist, you acquire wisdom, transcending the mere accumulation of willpower. You begin to discern the recurring patterns that lead to your missteps and the inherent strengths that empower you to persevere. You realize that every internal conflict leaves you marginally wiser, incrementally stronger, and more acutely attuned to the specific kind of life you aspire to construct. None of these profound insights advocate for an unattainable state of perfection. Their true essence lies in embracing authenticity, cultivating an inquisitive perspective towards your desires, maintaining honesty regarding your inherent limitations, and extending compassion to your ongoing struggles. Nzedli's most profound revelation was that the individual you ultimately become is shaped not by your triumphs, but by the manner in which you confront and navigate your failures. The next time temptation exerts its influence, recall that you possess an array of tools, you are endowed with choices, and you wield the inherent power to transmute adversity into enduring strength. You are not engaged in an internal battle against yourself. Rather, you are undergoing a transformative process, progressively aligning with the person you are destined to become. The majority of individuals fervently wish that temptation would simply cease to exist. However, what if every impulse, every intense craving, every moment where you nearly surrender is, in fact, an implicit invitation? An invitation to pause, to delve deeper into your motivations, and to genuinely ascertain your fundamental needs. Not merely what you desire in the fleeting present moment, and to firmly believe that the challenges we encounter are precisely the fertile ground where our most significant personal growth is initiated. He eloquently wrote, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." When temptation manifests, instead of exclusively attempting to resist it, pose the question to yourself, what is the underlying why beneath this compelling urge? Are you experiencing boredom, loneliness, sadness, stress, or even a profound hunger for meaning? The more candid and truthful you are with yourself, the greater authority you will gain over the urge. In due course, you will begin to identify discernible patterns. Perhaps temptation exerts its strongest influence when you perceive yourself as lacking agency in other facets of your existence. It might frequently surface when you are feeling exhausted or in the aftermath of a significant disappointment. The core objective is not to harbor animosity towards these specific junctures, but rather to exploit them constructively. Each instance possesses the potential to unveil an unacknowledged facet of your being, an area that demands focus, nurturing, or modification. The intensity of temptation escalates most dramatically when an individual is disconnected from their inner self. Should one navigate through days operating on an automatic pilot, characterized by relentless rushing, an incessant desire to appease others, and a deliberate avoidance of one's own emotions, it becomes remarkably simple for ingrained behavioral patterns to reassert themselves surreptitiously. However, the exact moment one deliberately decelerates and genuinely observes the internal processes unfolding, a profound reestablishment of command commences. Engaging in practices such as journaling, meditative introspection, or simply immersing oneself in periods of profound silence can significantly aid in the early detection of these nascent indicators. Probing questions arise. What is the underlying cause of this particular emotional state I am experiencing? Which events transpired today that serve to ignite this specific compulsion? When one successfully elevates awareness to a conscious level, the formidable grip of temptation begins to dissipate. It ceases to be an enigmatic, shadowy influence whose origins and nature remain obscure. Instead, it transforms into a coherent message, capable of being received, analyzed for valuable insights, and adeptly managed with judicious discretion. Self-awareness, fundamentally, is not predicated on judgment or condemnation. Its essence lies in the cultivation of profound compassion. You transition from being your own adversary to becoming your most steadfast ally. This internal shift enables you to cultivate self-forgiveness and to persistently advance, irrespective of the frequency of missteps or setbacks encountered. The deliberate construction of a life trajectory that inherently diminishes the potency of temptation. Ancient philosophical tenets posited that the most psychologically robust individuals are not those who remain entirely immune to the allure of temptation. Rather, they are those who meticulously infuse their existence with profound purpose, stimulating challenges and intrinsic meaning. Consequently, the fertile ground for temptation to propagate and flourish becomes significantly constricted. This strategic approach can be implemented by conscientiously selecting activities, cultivating relationships, and pursuing objectives that ignite a profound sense of vitality and enthusiasm. When your temporal resources are allocated to endeavors that possess genuine significance, the superficial allure of instant gratification in transient, quick fixes loses its persuasive power. If you find yourself gravitating towards the desire to seek refuge in something inherently superficial, consider proactively integrating something genuinely enriching into your life instead. This could manifest as embarking on a creative endeavor, engaging in work that holds deep personal meaning, or fostering profound empathetic connections with individuals who genuinely comprehend your inner world. As you diligently construct a life that authentically reflects your deepest aspirations, you will find a diminished reservoir of energy available to be siphoned off by temptations whose sole function is to induce numbness or serve as mere distractions. Take a contemplative assessment of your current weekly schedule. Does it allocate sufficient space for moments of profound wonder, for tangible personal advancement, for experiences that truly resonate with significance? What modifications, however minor, could you implement to render your authentic life so intrinsically engaging that temptation begins to feel like an unwelcome intrusion rather than an enticing escape route? One of the most insidious misconceptions concerning temptation is the pervasive belief that one is obligated to achieve absolute perfection. The notion that succumbing to temptation, even once, unequivocally labels one as a failure. This perspective was unequivocally repudiated by profound thinkers. They posited that struggle, internal contradictions, and even instances of faltering are all integral components of the process of becoming more resilient. It is not a prerequisite to emerge victorious in every single skirmish to foster personal growth. The genuine triumph resides in the consistent act of showing up again, assimilating a little more wisdom with each iteration, and steadfastly refusing to allow self-recrimination to compel premature surrender. Life's purpose is not to systematically eradicate every personal flaw. Rather, it is to harness these imperfections as potent catalysts to propel your ongoing journey forward. If an error occurs, resist the urge to revert to a perceived starting point of zero. Instead, meticulously analyze the circumstances surrounding the event. Extract the pertinent lesson and persistently continue your trajectory. Those who ultimately achieve success are not individuals who navigate life entirely devoid of struggle. They are, unequivocally, those who possess the remarkable capacity to transmute every adversity into a springboard for fresh beginnings. Philosophical teachings emphasize that the manner in which one engages with pain, with primal urges, and with the inherent struggles of existence is precisely what imbues life with profound meaning. When the force of temptation asserts itself powerfully, it presents an invaluable opportunity to engage in deeper self-inquiry. What is the true object of my relentless search? What do I genuinely aspire to construct and achieve? The very moments that evoke a desire for escape are, in fact, subtly directing your attention towards the facets of your life that yearn for healing, for fortification, or for fundamental transformation. If you cultivate a keen sense of attentiveness, temptation metamorphoses from an adversary into an invaluable mentor. It possesses the capacity to illuminate the areas where you harbor a profound hunger for authentic connection, for genuine adventure, or for unadulterated love. The more you consciously leverage these moments as opportunities for unvarnished honesty, the more vibrant and potent your existence becomes. Profound philosophical insights suggest that meaning is not an inherent gift bestowed upon an individual. It is, rather, a construct that one actively creates. Each instance in which you respond to the pull of temptation with a spirit of inquisitive curiosity and unwavering courage, you actively sculpt the narrative of your own life. You furnish irrefutable evidence to yourself that your identity transcends your mere impulses. You are an individual possessing the capacity for learning, for adaptation, and for the autonomous authorship of your own future. Every single struggle you confront and ultimately surmount bestows upon you a reservoir of wisdom that can be shared beneficently with others. Your lived experience, encompassing both your setbacks and your triumphs, can serve as a beacon of illumination for another navigating their own period of darkness. Do not hoard your personal growth exclusively for yourself. Share your narrative, even if it is characterized by imperfections, even if your learning journey is still actively unfolding. A poignant philosophical directive states, "Become who you are." This imperative implies an unconditional acceptance of every constituent part of your being, including those aspects you might ardently wish would simply vanish. When you articulate your experiences with temptation with unreserved honesty, you shatter the prevailing silence and convey to others that they are not isolated in their struggles. Cultivate an environment, both online and within your immediate social circles and family, where open discourse about these challenges is normalized, stripped of any accompanying shame. The world urgently requires more individuals who are prepared to be authentically real. When you openly share your personal journey, you concurrently empower others to cultivate their own resilience. Temptation does not signify the terminal point of your life's narrative. It marks the commencement of your subsequent chapter. Each deliberate choice you make, honesty over concealment, learning over shame, and growth over guilt, propels you to a position of greater power than any fleeting urge. You are not compelled to wage this internal battle in isolation. You are equipped with intellectual tools, accumulated wisdom, and the inherent capacity to initiate anew as frequently as circumstances necessitate. The individual you are progressively becoming is meticulously forged through these myriad small, yet profoundly honest decisions. Therefore, the next time temptation exerts its influence, remember this crucial truth. You are not fundamentally broken. You are not inherently weak. You are undeniably human. And your inner strength surpasses your current comprehension. Should this exposition have furnished you with even a single pivotal insight, we encourage you to articulate your most significant aha moment within the comment section below. Furthermore, if you desire access to more profound guidance for living a life that is authentically aligned with your true self, we invite you to subscribe. Your transformative journey has merely commenced.